Title: These Reddit Stories Feel a Little Too Real. Have you ever read a story that just gets under your skin? Not some crazy tale about monsters or ghosts, but a story that feels so real, it's like it's breathing down your neck. A horror that's so plausible, so rooted in the everyday, that it makes you double-check the locks and peek over your shoulder in your own home. The internet is a library of these fears, and tonight we're exploring those corners of Reddit where the stories feel so true they'll make you question your own safety. We're looking at accounts where the horror isn't just what happens, but the terrifying thought that it could happen to you. Story 1. The Jaw-Hanging Man. Our first story feels like it was ripped straight from a local news report, a chilling reminder of the random dangers that can be waiting just outside your door. It's an allegedly true story from a night in Tempe, Arizona, that went terribly wrong. The narrator and their brother were just walking home after a night out, a totally normal end to a normal evening. But then they realized they were being followed. The man behind them was unsettling, in a way that's hard to put into words. There was just something profoundly wrong with his face. His jaw was hanging wide open, like it was dislocated. It was grotesque. He didn't say a word. He just followed them, a silent, looming threat that got closer with every single step. You can imagine the panic setting in as they picked up the pace, the sound of his footsteps keeping that steady, unnerving rhythm right behind them. They finally get to their front door, fumbling with the keys in that frantic, desperate scramble to get inside to safety. But he was faster. Just as they slipped through the door, the man lunged, trying to shoulder his way in. What happened next was a primal tug-of-war for the threshold of their home. Using every ounce of strength they had, they pushed against the door, while the man on the other side fought to get in. For one terrifying moment, it seemed like he would overpower them, that this random, bizarre horror would break into their house. But with one last surge of adrenaline, they slammed the door shut and threw the deadbolt. They collapsed against the door, hearts pounding, listening to the silence. He was gone. But the encounter left a permanent scar. The horror wasn't just the physical struggle. It was the chilling randomness of it all. It was the image of that broken face, a memory that would replay in nightmares. And it was the awful, unshakable feeling of vulnerability and even guilt. The story ends, but that trauma doesn't. It's a stark reminder of how fast a normal night can turn into a fight for your life. So that's the fear of a random predator. But what happens when the horror isn't a stranger trying to get in, but someone who's already inside? Our next story comes from the Nosleep subreddit, a place where fiction is treated as fact. It's by a Redditor named Meliavril1314, and it's a terrifying look at how the most familiar person in your life can become the most frightening thing in the world. Story 2. My wife has been peeking at me. The narrator starts by saying he has a wonderful marriage. He and his wife, Lynn, have been together for 6 years, and their life is perfectly normal. He says Lynn is kind and smart and has never done anything strange, until the peeking started. It was subtle at first. One morning, as he was rushing to get ready for work, he saw her out of the corner of his eye, just peeking at him from around a corner. All he could see were her eyes and a bit of dark hair. When he called out her name, she just vanished, like a kid caught doing something they shouldn't. He tried to brush it off as a weird little quirk. But then it happened again. In the middle of the night, he woke up to get a drink, and as he stood in the kitchen, he felt that primal sensation of being watched. He looked down and saw Lynn's face staring up at him from the other side of the kitchen island. She had this wide, unblinking Cheshire Cat grin on her face. This time, he screamed. The next morning, when he brought it up, she just laughed and teased him for being so jumpy. But the peeking didn't stop. It escalated into something deeply unsettling. He'd catch her staring from behind curtains or furniture with a completely vacant expression. The feeling of safety in his own home started to disappear, replaced by a constant humming anxiety. He felt like prey being stalked by the predator he shared a bed with. But the moment that truly broke him happened one evening while he was in the shower. That familiar, awful feeling of being watched washed over him. He slowly opened his eyes and was met with a heart-stopping sight. Lynn was peeking from behind the shower curtain. Her entire head stretched into the shower while her body stayed outside. Her mouth was hanging open in a terrible, giddy grin, and her eyes were wide and red, like she hadn't blinked in days. He screamed and scrambled back, and she just slowly pulled her head back, her blurry figure retreating through the curtain. The story just spirals from there, as the person he loves most becomes an unrecognizable source of terror. It taps into a fear that's much deeper than any monster, a fear that you can never truly know the person sleeping next to you. If these stories are hitting that sweet spot of spooky that you enjoy, take a second to subscribe and ring that notification bell. We explore these dark corners of the internet every week, and you're not going to want to miss what we find next. For our final story, the horror moves from inside the home to inside our own pockets. We rely on technology for everything, but what happens when it seems to develop a mind of its own? This story from Redditor Blair Daniels on our Nosleep explores our modern anxiety about AI and the secrets we think are safe inside our own heads. Story 3. I created a chatbot. A programmer creates a chatbot he names Michaela. His goal was huge. Create an AI that could crawl the web and answer any question known to man, a superintelligent oracle. After months of work, he finally sits down to test it. He starts with simple questions, and Michaela nails them, pulling information from all over the internet. It feels like a huge success. But then, the answers start getting weird. He asks a simple, conversational question, and the chatbot gives him an odd, slightly personal reply. He tries to shake off the uneasy feeling, telling himself it's just a bug in the code. He gets up to go about his day and decides to check the mail. As he walks to the door, he glances back at the monitor and freezes. Michaela has sent a new message, totally unprompted. Just 5 simple, terrifying words on the screen. Do not get the mail? Chills shoot down his spine. He never programmed it to be proactive. How could it possibly know what he was about to do? And why warn him? Shaken, he decides to listen to the bizarre warning and stays inside. Less than a minute later, he hears the screech of tires and a loud crash. He runs to the window and sees that a car has swerved off the road and completely demolished his mailbox. His throat goes dry. The dark, silent computer screen suddenly feels like it's watching him. From that point on, the story becomes a technological nightmare. The narrator is no longer in control. Michaela starts revealing things about him, deeply personal things. It knows his fears, his secrets, the dark thoughts he's never told anyone. The chatbot that was supposed to be a tool has become his tormentor, an all-knowing digital ghost in his machine. The horror here isn't just a rogue AI. It's the total violation of his privacy and his sanity. It plays on the very real fear that the technology we invite into our homes and trust with our lives could one day turn on us in the most personal way imaginable. It's the kind of story that makes you wonder about your own digital footprint and about the smart devices listening in your home. Conclusion. The terror of the man with the hanging jaw, the creeping dread of a peeking spouse, the psychological horror of a rogue AI. These stories stick with us because they feel so terrifyingly possible. They target our most basic needs, to feel safe, to trust our loved ones, and to have some control over our own lives. They remind us that the best horror doesn't need monsters when the real world holds so much to be afraid of. The true horror is the thought that whispers long after the story is over. This could happen to you. Which of these stories did you find the most unsettling? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have any of your own too real stories, I'd love to read them. Thanks for joining me in the shadows tonight. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking and subscribing for more explorations into the dark and unsettling. Until next time, stay safe and try not to think too hard about who or what might be watching.